So, on a fine day, I got a text from one of my friends. "It's a good rainy day. Let's go to a waterfall nearby." Where did they get the energy to climb a hill when it was raining so heavily? Why can't they just enjoy a nice cup of tea or coffee with a music playlist? Oh well, either way, there was no point in saying no because they would surely drag me out of my house anyway. So, we decided to set out in the evening and ended up arriving around 5:30. Despite originally planning to laze around in my room, the thought of witnessing the mountain covered with the lush blanket of fog and a distant view of the waterfall made the trip well worth it. Also, it would be less crowded there as it was a weekday. When we started climbing, it took the four of us around 15 to 20 minutes to reach the waterfall. The view of the city from up there was mesmerizing. There was a very small area surrounded by big rocks at the summit of the waterfall. The flow had created hot spring style potholes one below another. There were a few people up there, around 4 to 5 others aside from us. As the waterfall was loud, it was hard to communicate without yelling. Despite the loud silence of not speaking, our group would just enjoy each other's company without having the need for conversation. We all sat in one of the potholes in silence, just vibing with the feel of flowing water. We ended up drifting off from taking in the enchanted view and listening to the blissful sound of the waterfall. After some time passed, I noticed a small broken branch of a white flower flowing beside me. I watched it as it flowed down from one pothole to another. I recalled how peaceful it was watching the broken branch flow off until it went out of view into a thick forest. That was when I was jolted out of my daydream. I looked back wondering what my friends were up to, and found them all still daydreaming as they were all laying down enjoying the sound flow, gazing up at the sky. I then noticed something strange. It was so quiet that I couldn't hear people laughing or talking like before. I looked back and realized the place was deserted. We were the only ones left behind. When I checked my watch, I felt uneasy. By the time we came here and sat down, it was around 6 p.m. I was sure we spent 15 minutes idling around, but there was a 45-minute gap which couldn't be accounted for. When I told the rest of the group that it was 7 p.m., they all thought I was joking around. But after confirming the time themselves, they all had confused look on their faces. For the moment, we decided not to overthink the situation and instead started to head back as it was getting dark. As we started our way down while chit-chatting, I was still bothered by the fact that the four of us were just sitting there for almost an hour and none of us noticed that the other people had left. But as my thoughts were preoccupied with this, I heard a distant whistling sound come from the forest edge of the trail we were walking. Just to give a clear idea of the trail, it was a narrow path on the edge of the hill and down below leading towards a slide of deep forestation. I looked at my friends to see if anyone else heard it too, but they all seemed to be busy with their conversation. I shrugged, thinking it was just maybe a bird. As I continued a few steps down, I heard it again, a whistle that sounded very human. I watched my friends walking in front of me as they all looked in the same direction down at the forested edge. Upon hearing it, the whistle sounded casual, but as we quickened our pace, the tone changed and sounded like it wanted our attention. By then, any conversation between our group was slowly dying down as we were starting to realize the strangeness of the situation. What I also noticed was that the whistling was consistently heard from the same distance even though we were moving faster, almost as if it was following us. And as we were starting to slowly panic, the sun was starting to set, which meant that we had only a matter of minutes before it would become dark. We were almost out of the forested area, but it was pitch dark and we were at the mercy of the flashlight of our phones, and the slippery, muddy trails were not doing us any favors on getting the hell out of there. I was walking ahead of the group to help my friends get by the slippery slopes during our descent. I was starting to be a little hopeful as we were nearing out of the pitch dark forest. This wishful thinking was erased as there was a sudden breaking of a branch behind us, and that was quickly followed with a slow whistle that sent a chill down everyone's spine. As my heart was racing faster than ever, I looked back, and everyone was frozen still like statues. I really wanted to point the flashlight in the direction of the whistle, but something inside my head screamed for me to leave it alone. I somehow calmed myself and instead moved the light to check on my friends. Two of them were holding it together, but the one who was walking last had tears in her eyes and was ready to give up and scream her lungs out for help. I honestly believe she would have done it if she wasn't paralyzed by fear. I could sense that none of them wanted to be standing at the end of the line. And I knew that everyone, including me, just wanted to run like hell, but that would have only led to some serious injury as the path was filled with sharp stones. I mustered whatever courage I had left not to panic and walked back to tap on her shoulders, signaling her to move forward while quietly joking about how she was slowing us down. In my mind, I begged for them to quietly move along, and thankfully, for their sake, they laughed awkwardly and paced forward. All life on Earth, including humans, animals, and even insects, share one thing that has been hardwired in their DNA, and that is instinct, a necessity for survival. At the moment, not so much out of fear, there was something within us telling us that something was lurking in that slope of thick forest not far behind us. That steep slope was nearly impossible to stand or walk through for any normal human. Somehow, we all knew that, and we absolutely couldn't afford to acknowledge the whistle or that there was something within those bushes. After what felt like forever, we finally managed to get out of the forest as we rushed towards our bike and took off as fast as we could. The sound of traffic and building lights calmed us down. I noticed we were all shivering from the cold and fear. We made a stop at a tea stall. The warmth of tea was soothing as time passed by, which allowed our fears to fade away. What happened to us? Were we scared of random noises? Was our brain messing with us out of fear? We sat huddled together discussing many theories and logical reasonings and came up with the best theory. It could have been a bird that mimicked human sound. Sounds reasonable, right? After all, crows and parrots can basically have conversations. How hard can it be for a bird to whistle? In the end, we all shrugged it off. As days passed by, it still didn't fit right with me. So, I decided to do some research about this place. And to my surprise, there were no native birds that could mimic sounds. Also, it was supposed to be the hunting grounds for kites. So, birds smaller in size tend to avoid the area, which threw the parrot theory out of the equation. As I went down the rabbit hole, I found something that made my blood run cold. Apparently, there were several cases of suicides and accidental deaths of many men, women, and children, some of which the bodies were never found. The police would always seal the entrance with barricades during heavy rainy days, but some locals would manage to slip past and would later suffer unfortunate accidents. I could not find any stories like ours, but then again, this spot wasn't known to many except for the locals here. To this day, I have no explanation as to what could have happened to us that evening. Was it a ghost? Something out of folklore like Skinwalker? Or a mind game propagated by fear? I have no choice but to leave this to my imagination.